Hello and welcome to this week's session on sound healing and silence. So, as a sound healing practitioner and sound healing tutor for the College of Sound Healing, I'm always asked about why silence is so important in sound. And it might seem like a really odd concept that we would be creating silence and sound or silence through sound. But actually, it's almost more important than the sound. And if anything, we talk about the sound leading people to the silence. So the sound is actually the energy, the force that leads us to this deeper state of relaxation. And in that place, the silence is more palpable, more evident. So I've got some questions here asked by students through the Sound Healing with the Voice course, and I thought I'd just run through those and perhaps give a brief answer and description as to why working with sound and silence is so important. So just kicking off here, we've got number one question. Why is silence so important in sound healing? So as I just said, when we're working with sound, we've got to think about our intention. We've got to think about what we're actually doing, why we're there. And certainly if we're working with sound healing, we are working with healing energy. It's a bit like working as a Reiki practitioner. We're using our intention to harness universal energy that flows through us and through the sound to lead someone to a place of healing, wellness, or well-being. And of course, nothing is a quick fix. All of these things are going to be a gradual thing. So perhaps a client is coming every week for a one-to-one session. Perhaps they're coming to you every week for a sound bath, whatever it might be. But this is a slow practice. And what we're doing as practitioners, or at least what we're aiming to do as practitioners, is to meet people where they're at, meet their nervous system where it's at. And for some people, it might be that they're constantly in a stress mode, constantly in a stress response. So a heightened beta mode, that's where they live their life, that's where they're used to being, and perhaps they very occasionally come down into just a regular beta mode and perhaps a bit of alpha for going to sleep. So they might be living in that stress response. Other people might be living in a more relaxed way generally. They're able to control their nervous system and use stress as a stimulant when they need it and switch it off when they don't. Other people might even be in more of a sort of freeze response. So they're also stressed, but it's coming out as lethargy, it's coming out as stagnation in the body. So people are coming to you from different places, and we need to know, certainly working one-to-one through the consultation, we need to know what's going on for that person, what's going on in their nervous system, because that gives us an indication of how much sound we can use. However, certainly if you're working in a group situation or you're working in a sound bath situation, you need to err more on the side of caution. And silence can really help you to do that, because it can help you not to overload people with sound and not therefore to shock their body and put them into a stress response. If we have relentless sound, whether it's even soft, beautiful sounds, it might be the sound of pure tone sounding into the body. It might be the sound of continuous singing bowl. It might be the sound of a gong being played continuously. After a while, that sound is pushing and moving energy in the body. And there's so much of that we can take. We have to have the space and the silence to integrate that sound. And without that space and without that silence, we can feel really overloaded. We can feel almost sick from the sound. And that's not the response that we're looking to get from our clients. When we're working one-to-one with people, certainly if you've trained on the College of Sound Healing with the voice course, you'll understand and you'll have known from the one-to-one protocols that we use that there is silence built into all of these protocols. And actually, at the end of the treatment, there's a whole 10 minutes of silence where we've administered the sound, we've worked with sound and silence throughout, and then we let the person sink into that bed, as it were, of silence, into that deeper space. And if we've done our job well, we will have taken someone from one level of wherever they might be, if that was super stressed, heightened beta, to just regular, from regular beta, and just down a notch at a pace that's right for them, and just taking them into that deeper state. We can't expect the nervous system to change overnight. The nervous system is a response of how we've used it, how we've lived our lives, how we've practiced well-being or not. It's not going to happen overnight. It's like going to the gym. If you want to work with getting your nervous system into a more flexible state where you can enjoy relaxation, switch on a bit of stress when you need it, switch it off again when you don't, to have that type of control over your nervous system, you need to work with your nervous system and tools regularly to help yourself become more flexible in that way. So when we're working with clients, depending on, where they're at, we need to encourage that gentle practice. So if someone's coming to me every week for a sound healing, I might be able to go a little bit deeper each time. But I'm not going to go deeper by offering more sound. I'm going to go deeper by allowing almost more silence for that sound to integrate. And that's another thing. Why do we use silence in sound healing? We use silence to allow the sound and the vibration to integrate into a person's body. If you're working with somebody who is full of stuck energy, full of emotion, full of stuff they've been squirreling away for years, and then you go into the energy field and you start with your sounds, and you've got your voice going, and a bit of bowl, and a bit of gong, and a bit of something else. That's too much, by the way. You don't need all of those things. But if you're working with someone that's really clogged, and that sound starts to move the energy in their body, and it comes in to be processed, all that stuff they've been squirreling away is suddenly coming up, ready to be dealt with. And it's too much. So that can send somebody into a healing crisis. And as much as, a healing crisis, people can say, it's a positive thing. And, to a certain extent, it means there's a shift happening. People need support when they're going through a healing crisis. You can't just send someone into a healing crisis and send them off back into their life to look after the kids, go to work, run the home, do all the things they do. We need, as practitioners, it's our duty of care to guide people very gently into this work. It's not about overloading them. If you overload them with sound, their body and the nervous system will go into a stress response. And that is the complete opposite of what you want. And it could be a very dangerous thing. And especially if somebody is suffering from severe mental illness, for example, this can really unbalance people. So it's important to know what you're doing and really feel that, feel that balance between the sound, stepping back, silence, stepping back. So it's not about us. It's not about us performing. It's not about us getting involved in what we can do with the sound. That's the ego. And it's not about that. It's about stepping out of the way of that, getting back to a very natural way of being, natural way of offering sound, not from a place of wanting to do, wanting to show how many instruments you have, wanting to be the loudest voice or the biggest gong. It's nothing to do with that. Ultimately, we could probably just work with our intention and a simple hum. When we become clear enough as a collective to channel energy in that way, just a simple hum would bridge the gap between those ethereal realms and the physical. So that's all I have to say about that one. And a second question, which is very similar, really, in the same vein, is why is the less is more approach safer? And I'd say the less is more approach is safer because until you really get to know a client after a session or two, or if you're working as a sound bath practitioner, you don't know, especially if you're working with a group, you don't know how those people are going to respond to your sound, the sound you're making. You don't know what's going on with them. You don't know where they are in terms of their stress or relaxation response, their state of general health, if they've got illness, mental illness, anything. You don't know. And you certainly can't go wrong with less. And it doesn't mean that you're going to have a less powerful treatment. By doing less and allowing more silence, all you're doing is allowing more space for integration. So you're more likely to have a more successful outcome. In the person will feel better, the person will feel more relaxed, the person will feel less assaulted, less bombarded by the sound. So if we do too much, we're sending people away to process, we're sending them back in their lives, and all sorts of emotions can come up. And again, that's not a bad thing, but if it all comes up all together and somebody's prone to depression, for example, it could mean that they go into a more depressive state as a result of your treatment, and they haven't got anyone there to support them to come out of it. And by the time they see you again, they've already gone further into that sort of slippery slope. So less is more is not about it's not about caution. It's just about accepting the power of what you're doing. And if you're working with healing intention, then you already know it's going to be powerful. If you don't know what healing intention is, and you don't know what working with healing intention is, then you need to have a bit of training on that. Otherwise, it is just sound. But far from me to judge what anybody's doing, but it is very much led by intention. So if somebody needs a more gentle intention, you can work with that. If someone, if we're there that day to really try to shift something for someone and they're prepared for that, then we can allow that energy to flow. But other than that, less is more. And within that silence, the person will go deeper. The person will find that point where their body's healing mechanism is activated. It's up to us to guide someone to that place. And they're not going to find that place if they're being bombarded by chaos and sound, if it's too much. So another question is, how do I know how much silence I need to leave? And there's a couple of things here. On a purely practical offering of sound level, we can focus on two things. Firstly, letting the sound decay. So if you're working with voice, letting the sound go to a quieter place as you tone. If you're working with a bowl or working with a gong, letting the sounds actually get to a point where you can hear it's like they go on and on and on, and letting that happen rather than restriking an instrument or sounding again or pushing the voice, letting the more gentle sounds come through. Feel like the sound is growing into the space, that it's actually it's almost like it's moving away from you, and that's what we call a decaying of the sound. When you let the sound decay, the person that's receiving the sound is taken deeper into the space because it's almost like they're traveling away with the sound. The sound is traveling towards the silence, and the person themselves then travels towards that silence. So that's the first thing, letting the sounds decay. The second thing I always say is be aware of the silence around the sound. So if I'm toning, for example, let me just change my microphone setting. So if I'm toning and I just do a simple tone, I'm not going to be aware of the silence for the moment. So I'm just demonstrating this. It's all about me making the sound. I must make a powerful sound. Rah, there's my sound. Now this time I'm going to make the sound, but I'm going to listen to hear the harmonics and the space around the sound. So part 1 of the voice course, we give homework about listening to music rich in harmonics. And the students have to reflect on what they hear. And these harmonics are it's more than the sound. It's what surrounds the sound in addition to the silence. And start to hear these harmonics. And that's what we're listening for. So if I sound with an awareness now of silence around the sound, ooh, so as I sound, I'm listening. As I sound, I'm actively listening to the space around the sound. And this is key. It's not about just sounding. I hit my bowl, I hit my gong, I'll sound, I'll play my shruti box, I'll do some chimes. It's not about that. It's about listening to the space, listening to the silence as you sound. So sound healing is 2 things. It's active in offering the sound, but it's also active in listening to the space. So we become this sort of loop. We're putting out and receiving back. And when we are functioning in this way, with this sensitivity, we increase the energy flow in the room, and we increase the energy in the space for the people that are there, and they become aware of something else. And it is that something else that is the silence, that is the reverberation of the harmonics in the space, the healing harmonics. And it's those harmonics that the body recognizes and locks onto and takes the person to a place of alignment. Takes them to alignment at a rate that's right for them. So it's not just bam in alignment, but it starts to work towards taking them to that space. So those are the 2 things, letting the sound decay and listening as you sound. And this will help you to know if you're using enough silence. The other thing that really sparks as well, and of course as sound healers we're always needing to do our own work, our own inner work is so important. Because if we're doing too much, if we feel the need to keep offering, giving, doing the sound, making it happen, for whatever reason, we need to look within. Because are we then working from a place of ego? Are we working from the place of people pleasing? I must do more sound because they won't understand the silence and they'll think I just didn't know what to do. Are we working from the place of alignment ourselves? Are we working from a place of chaos? We just need to keep making the sound. Where are you working from? So these questions, this self-inquiry is really important. When you're working with sound, notice, are you feeling nervous? If you're feeling nervous, people, or the person who you're working with, the group, they will pick up on that energy. If you're worrying because you think it's going to go wrong, you're sending that vibration, that worry, into the space. So before we work, we need to make sure that we are aligned, that we're as healthy as we can be, that we're rested, that we've set our intention. And I'll do a session on intention as well. But just that intention, why are we there? And, if you're working for healing, you're working, the energy flows through you for the highest good of yourself and the people in the space. and whatever greater intention for the highest good you might be holding. And so when you're working from that place of intention, and this is the last point I'll mention on this, but when you're working from that place of intention, then actually you're working with subtle energy, and you will feel a much more sensitive way of working. You'll know as you make the sound, you'll feel that sound. As you create the space and the silence, you'll feel into that, and you'll be playing with that energy. So you'll feel a sense of rise and fall and ebb and flow. And your intuition will tell you when it's too much. You will feel when it's too much. And of course, being a sound healer is about, improving our sense of intuition, removed from the ego, really knowing what intuition is versus the ego voice. So working with silence really encourages our own development. It encourages our own self inquiry, an opportunity to reflect and look at what we're actually putting out there, and look at our needs. Can we let go of the outcome? Can we put it out there and release that with love? Release that with intention for the highest good? Or are we holding on to it? So it's, there are many aspects to this. But that certainly ties in with knowing how much silence to leave, or how much sound to give, whichever way you want to look at it. And then the last question I thought I'd cover today was why is it that all sound healers don't follow this approach with silence? People have said that they've been to sound bars, they feel the sound is relentless. They feel like it's almost like this assault on their senses, and they've come away feeling quite sick, feeling headachy, and just feeling out of balance. And certainly I've had people come to sound baths that I've given over the years. I was offering sound baths back in 2013 in my local area. Nobody even knew what a sound bath was back then. But there were a couple of people that came over the years that said, oh no, I don't know, I'm really nervous. I've been to other events and I just felt ill, but I'm coming with my friend. Am I going to be okay? And I've had to really put their mind at rest that actually the sound baths I'm offering are a nurturing experience. And I've had even fellow colleagues say, well, you can't have too much sound. And I wholeheartedly disagree. For sure, sound is sound. And we don't have to judge it as sound. It is what it is. And there are loads of research papers that tell us that, sound won't harm us. It's just sound. But I go back to the question the first question we had in this session. It depends on who's receiving it. And it depends on, I would say, the skill of the practitioner to deliver that sound with an awareness that people might be coming that are stressed and therefore, need not to be bombarded with more sound that could make them stressed, or that people might be coming that are suffering with their health, and actually if they have to process too much sound and too much energy, this could wipe them out for the next week, because we have to remember that when we start to process energy that we've stored, that takes energy. So when you're actually processing all the stuff you've been squirreling away for the last 10 years, because you realise actually it's making you unwell, you've got to have enough energy to process that energy. Otherwise it gets stuck and then you feel worse. And that's one of the reasons why we suggest that people that are undergoing chemotherapy, for example, don't have sound sessions whilst they're doing that. Because the body is using all the energy it has to process those toxins in the body and keep the body alive. If they're suddenly bombarded with sound, the body's then got to use energy to try to process that vibration. We come back to, as always, our bodies They appear solid, but they are energy. They're a mass of vibrating particles, atoms. We are energy. We appear solid because our particles are closely grouped together. And, that's great because we need to hold ourselves together, don't we, as a solid being? But ultimately, we're energy. So if we are holding lots of excess stuck energy and our energy field isn't flowing as freely and as freshly as it could, it's not grounding off, it's not discharging to the earth, we're not getting renewed energy into our energy centres and into our field, then we've got clutter. It's like being in a very cluttered environment. So when you then apply lots of sound to that cluttered environment, you think about that vibration comes in, it's a bit like having a massage. All of your cells are receiving that vibration. So, that means then that everything goes up in the air and then has to be processed or resettled. And it's at that point. So if it starts to move and then it gets stuck again, what are you going to do? It might be emotional energy that gets stuck and you just feel awful. It might be energy that's moved and it's making you feel sick. It's giving you a headache. It's making you feel like you've got a migraine. And we know that after sound treatments, the body goes through a mild detoxification. And the more you get used to having sound treatments, the easier it is to process. But when we work with somebody in a group situation or one-to-one, initially we have to get to know them to really understand what's going on with them. So I don't know why some sound healers don't follow this approach. I can only assume that they either haven't been trained or they haven't considered what they're actually doing in terms of matter, moving particles, vibration in the body. Even if the body is, we understand, made up of 60-70% water, that is still matter. Water is matter and it will move and flow around the body. So ideally, after somebody's had a sound treatment, they'll drink plenty of water, they would rest for a few days, and just take it easy. Let the body settle, let the body come to a state of balance. We want to have regular sound treatments and we want to be led gently into this deep space of silence each time, because this deep space of silence is the practice. If we can take somebody, if we can lead them by the hand and take them to that silence, they get used to going there. And the more regularly they can go there, the more regularly they'll be able to go there on their own. The more the nervous system says, oh, yeah, okay, I know this pathway. I can go to a pathway of relaxation. You might be able to just, have a couple of things that stimulate that for you, whether it's, a meditation practice or a toning practice, for example. So I don't know why people don't leave silence in their sound sessions. But I think that's why I felt called to make this video. Because I see many students, many people, I train many people all year round, and it really is about understanding that fine balance. And as we understand that balance, we become more energy aware, we become more intuitive. The more silence that we work with, the more we hone our skill as healers. And in my experience, the more successful the outcome, that the client comes back again. The client wants to come back for the session because it feels good, and that they feel good afterwards. They might just, for 24, 36 hours, need to take a bit of care, go gently, but they feel better. Their energy is stronger. Their energy flows more efficiently. I will do another session on intention and the importance of grounding to fit into all of this. But first of all, just if you're working with sound and you want to be offering really, really powerful but gentle sessions, start to work with the silence and just see what people say. You can always let them know in advance that there's going to be silence within the sound, but see what they say and take it from there. So thank you so much for taking the time to visit this video, and I hope to be making a few more as we go along. So thank you.